Hey, so one thing I keep asking myself as this goes on is like, where's the joy? When is the part where it starts feeling like, I won the lottery every day? And those feelings do happen. At least there can be a clarity, there can be a problemless beauty, a lightness for sure, but also some sense in the background that that's not really how it is. Like the heaviness is going to come back, the shadow's going to come back, the shadow work's going to go on forever, you know, um, which are all thoughts, all beliefs, right? But the shadow has gone on for quite a while. And and my default has not been joy, um, my entire life. And even when I had a honeymoon phase, back 20 years ago, which I didn't know was a honeymoon phase, I didn't know anything. Um, and I had no idea how to stabilize it or how to go further. I knew nothing about awakening, even though I kind of had one, and I knew nothing about shadow work, even though I felt like there was this lake of sludge somewhere that I was going to have to deal with someday, but I didn't have words for it. Um, anyway, point being, yeah, I've been kind of waiting and hoping for joy to show up, and in the shower just now, as I was just kind of rubbing like a little bit of gentle exfoliator on my cheeks, I felt this kind of like childlike joy, and it was like this hammer, like an axe came down, like stop that, like no, that's not for you. And I was like, oh, I saw it happen that time. Like I somehow like um I caught it. I caught the mechanism. And it makes sense because my mother, bless her heart, was not very good at handling my emotions, positive or negative. Like whenever I would be joyful in some way, she'd be like, cut that out, knock that off, or knock it off, whatever. And either I'd be climbing somewhere and I'd get hurt, or I'd get in trouble, or I'd be dancing around and she'd be like, stop flitting around, you're gonna break a toe. Or like one time I was at a new school and I was trying to make the best of something by um, talking about this baseball game that I played in where I contributed something positive, and it was a really tiny thing, but it made me feel like maybe I mattered a little bit. And my mom was just like, no wonder you don't have any friends. You're so weird. Um, or when I was kind of a tween, I had this sort of dowdy, fuzzy nightgown, right? Um, and I somehow just was playing with it and fashioned it into what looked to me like a Hollywood gown, right? And I thought it was so cute. And I didn't plan on showing it to anyone, but somebody walked in and saw me, and it was like, oh, come look what Pam did. And I was kind of like, okay. And my mom came and looked at me, and it was like she was just trying to find like, what can I say that's the most cutting thing I can say? And she was like, "You look like olive oil, like from the Popeye, so like skinny and homely." Like that was her commentary on that. By the way, nobody in my family outside of my husband and kids has any idea I have a little YouTube channel, and I hope it stays that way. This is not designed to break out and become a mainstream success. It's just my stuff, and if a couple of people get something out of it, great. But yeah, I don't expect it to get to them, but who knows? But anyway, I might even take this video offline at some point just to take the stress out of it. But it's real. This is what happens to a lot of kids. Their parents cannot handle their joy, and they just squash it. Um, Another example of joy was I was riding my bike downhill on a gravel road, really long grade gradient, not that steep, but really a long gradient. So like I was just like I pedaled as hard as I could and I was flying. And I felt like it was Satori, basically. Um, it was a moment of unitary perfection with, the universe. And next thing, and then, of course, it's like, if I don't stop, I'm gonna smash into that house. Um, and I hit the brakes, the bike slid. I think I flew over the handlebars. Both of my elbows and both of my knees basically looked like a lawnmower had run over them. Um, you know, I was pretty banged up. Um, so again, I mean, nobody's fault, maybe my fault, but it was just another example of where joy was like dangerous. Joy led to injury. Um, and in my adult years, there were times of joy, but they were so fleeting and so unpredictable. Um, it didn't it it felt like if this is baseline of life, it felt like this. And this baseline was just sort of um yeah, kind of like dread, stress, fear, unworthiness, all that good stuff. Um oh yeah, going back a little bit when I was a kid, I kept trying to find like a surrogate mother or somebody who would treat me like their special little princess. And naturally it wasn't anyone else's job to be my mother. And so there would always come a point, or there would come a point where I'd get too comfortable with them and come to them too often, and eventually be able to sense their exasperation with this sort of pathetic little kid, just who kept trying to take their time and energy that it wasn't their responsibility to give me. And as soon as I sensed that exasperation, it was like game over. It was like, okay, I'm never talking to you again. I get it. You don't want me either. Nobody does. Um, so I mean, that's just like some of the background to, and I don't think I'm alone there. I think this happens to a lot of people in different ways. Um, but yeah, in my adulthood, I remember often I get struck by poems at these moments that just seem perfect, and it was almost always at sunset. It seems um, like one time I was on I was in the Siwa Oasis, sort of in the desert, way out west of Cairo, and a couple and I had gone on an excursion with, four-wheel drive up in the dunes and little tiny oases, and it was just all this wonderful stuff. And then we all sort of the uh, the driver had a favorite dune apparently to watch the sunset from, and so we got on this really high dune, watched the sunset, and I looked to the woman I was with, and I was like, what's nice? There's some moments in life that are perfect, and there really are. There were some, um, and it really helps to be traveling in gorgeous places where you have a lot of time to watch sunsets. Um, and here in Oklahoma with the highways and the power lines and the less poetic way of people relating to each other, and um, yeah, it feels even more rare in a way. And I know the Buddha is at the bottom of the hedgerow. I know the Buddha is at the dumpster behind the strip mall. Um, but it can be easier to find it when you're on a dune in the Sahara than when you're at, I don't know, the supermarket in Tulsa. But anyway, there actually was one moment there that I remember playing soccer. There was a guy was trying to dribble past me. I was the defender, and somehow it was like I just wasn't there, and my body knew exactly what to do. And I kind of overtook the guy and kicked the ball out from, perfectly kicked the ball out of his control. Um, and it was just like the entire universe was that moment perfectly kicking that ball. Um, and it wasn't like anything even came of it. It wasn't like, I mean, maybe he even got the ball back. I don't remember. Not the point. The point is there was this moment of absolute perfection that of course, I've never even told anybody about because what is there to tell? Nobody, nobody gets it, generally speaking. Um, but that, it stands out as one of my favorite memories of the past several years. Just as far as pure joy, perfection, ease, lightness, just perfection. If you know, you know. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, hopefully you will. But but yeah, even now when joy comes up, it's kind of like my system registers it as a danger signal and tries to shut it down. And I wonder what I can do to make joy more tolerable to my system. Maybe just practice it. Breathe it in. Take like 10 seconds of not fighting it and go from there. But yeah, it was nice. I mean, it was helpful, I think, to recognize that mechanism. And if you see it in yourself, then maybe this will help you see it too.